Today I'm going to show you how I created this journal page using the masterboard I created on Monday. Hi, I'm Christine, the artist behind our list of designs, and I'm happy you're here. Welcome! I had an idea, and I've never done this before, but I started out by creating these silhouettes and printing them out, and you see where I'm going with this? Putting my glass down, and I'm going to get my wood burning tool and trace around them and create a stencil. So here I'm just taping everything down because the glass can slide, the acetate can slide, so everything's taped down to the surface so nothing moves around at all. And as you can see, I have the soldering tip on the wood burning tool, and this is just a cheap little tool that I probably got on Amazon. I'll put all the links to everything that I use. If I got it from Amazon, I'll put the links down below. If I didn't get it from Amazon, I probably don't remember where I got it. Now I'm going to take the acetate and line it up with the silhouettes that are below the glass, and I'm going to tape this acetate onto the top of the glass. I cannot tell you how many times I have taped the acetate to the paper itself. In fact, I think it was in my first stencil making video. You can go back and watch that if you want. It's a popular one. But no, you want to put the print that you're tracing over under the glass and tape the acetate on top of the glass. And as you can see, I even taped the glass to the tile that I'm working on so that that doesn't get moved around. So when you try this, if you try it, and if you do, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to see if anyone's done this for the first time, or have you been doing this for a really long time and you already knew. And if you have anything to add to this, I love learning from someone who's already learned. But if you try this, you'll notice that it just kind of melts like butter. And you need to go very slowly and just let it kind of guide you, because if you go too quickly, the tool will skip, and sometimes it lands on an area that you don't want it to land on, and then you have to start all over sometimes. So just go really slow. I'm leaving this slow clip in here so you can see how this is actual time, how quickly this goes. So I think it's kind of meditative. I enjoy it. Sometimes I really welcome the mundane, slow, monotonous tasks, because it gives you kind of some breathing room, and that's when I think about my ideas. Of course, there's usually some great music in the background, and you just take your time and be at peace. Sounds weird, but I'm 55, I got dogs, kids, grandkids. I need a little piece of my life. So this is a nice, quiet exercise in patience and mindfulness. One thing I want to point out about creating your own stencils in this way, depending on how thick the glass is, there is a space between the tip of your tool and the shape that you're tracing. So it's a good idea to pick the angle that you're looking through the glass at the outline that you're tracing, because if you move your head around and look at it at a different angle, your lines are going to be all off. So kind of decide where you're going to look at the entire thing when you start. That way, if you have to move around, you can come back to about that same angle, because it's going to be, I mean, you can see where your lines are that you've started if you have to stop and then come back, but it's kind of hard to see. So if you have to walk away, don't move anything. Come back and try and look at it from the same angle. That's messed me up so many times. It's very frustrating. But you get used to it and you learn to stick with the same view. So as you can see, I'm almost done. Oh, and my tool just skipped. I'm almost done, which is probably why I'm speeding up and my tool is skipping, because I'm getting excited to move on to the next one. And I'm not going to show you each one, but you see, and I wanted to leave in how long it takes me to do one. But don't let the fact that it takes a long time to trace around one image discourage you, because when you get done, you're going to have the positive, which I'm going to use, and the negative, and as long as you take care of these stencils, they last a really long time. So once they're done, you get to use them over and over and over again in so many projects. And I was thinking about this morning. I have so many stencils that I've ordered or bought from stores, and I always end up reaching for the ones that I've made. And then I thought, that's how artists become recognizable. At least it could be one way, right? If you're constantly using stencils that nobody else has, and people start to follow you, and they start to see these repeating patterns of things that you've created and nobody else has, then it contributes to the uniqueness of your own work, right? I'm going to use these stencils now to pick a piece of the rainbow masterboard that I created on Monday. And you can see where there's strips of tape. I should have put tabs in to hold the area that I cut out between their body and their arms, and I didn't, but that's a good way to kind of tape those little pieces down, and I'll go over it, and then when I'm done, I'll just fill in where the tape is. But I'm just taping it, the acetate, the stencil, down to the masterboard right now, and then instead of outlining it, these stencils are great. I'm not a huge fan of using them with pens or pencils to trace the outline. It can be done, but this is thin acetate. It's inexpensive. I would like to play around later with some thicker material, but for now, I would prefer to take a stencil brush or a stamping tool and go over it with, I used a little bit of black and some transparent silver just to make a little shadow around the edge of the stencil, around the body. And you can kind of see that shadow around the edge of this girl, because I forgot to show you how I did it, but I just brushed around just the edge of the body on the edge of the stencil, and then I know where to cut. So I cut her out with the scissors, and then I'm taking some of the smaller pieces that I couldn't get easily with my scissors with the X-Acto knife. And this is watercolor paper, so it's not easy to cut, but I got it done. I cut out 4 silhouettes and set them aside, and now I want to create the background for this journal spread. So first I'm putting deli paper behind both sides so that I don't spill paint over the edge, and then when it dries, your pages get stuck together. And sometimes I do this and sometimes I don't. There's lots of pages that were stuck together that you could see I pulled apart, but this is the first journal I'm going to finish, and you know, there's lots of room for improvement. I'm starting with gesso because I want to use the same colors that I used in the masterboard, but the masterboard came out really dark. I really wanted it to be more softer rainbow colors, and I just kind of did my thing and didn't pay attention, and it's okay, but I think I would like to try this again and do another page and lighten that up. But for sure I want the background to be very light and kind of soft, more pastel colors. So I started out with the white and just the gesso, and then just put a little bit of blue in it, and I'm going to spread that around and create a very soft sky for the background. The reason I'm using gesso instead of white paint is because I'm working in a composition book, and I don't mind that you can see the lines in the background, but I don't want them to be immediately obvious, and the gesso covers better, and it also gives me a nice matte surface to work on, which is great when it dries and you're adding layers on top of it. I don't know, my brain thinks that when you glue things onto gesso, it sticks better. Am I right? I don't know. You might notice that these pages are very wrinkled. I don't really worry about that either, because once I'm done with this, with all the layers that are on here and the coat that I put over, I usually seal everything in with a matte Mod Podge or a matte gel medium. So by the time I'm done with all the layers and the sealer coat, it's more of like a children's board book than a soft page journal. So a lot of those wrinkles and bubbles that end up happening when you work in a composition book disappear, or you're gluing things over them and they're under the layers. So I don't worry too much about it. And sometimes when you're doing different types of pages, it's really cool to create extra texture by just dry brushing over all the wrinkles and the bubbles. As you can see, I'm really getting into the clouds. I just saw the clouds in the page and decided to highlight some areas, but in the end, most of that gets covered up, but it was fun to do. One thing you can do with the wrinkles is use a brayer to go over them and kind of flatten them out a little bit. And then I decided I wanted to use my stencil that I created to make a little purple rain come through this beautiful pastel sky over the rainbow people that we're going to glue onto this spread. And as you can see, I'm going over all the clouds that I just spent so much time creating, but that's okay because it was enjoyable and that's the point, right? You've seen how to use the stencil and how I just went around the edges so that I could see the outline of the people and also create a little bit of shadow around the edge, kind of giving it a little bit more dimension. But this is the positive part of the stencil, the part that you cut out. So the reason I love these, and I try and be very careful how I cut everything out so that I have the positive and the negative, is because you can use these as a mask. And in this case, I wanted to put a gold halo around each of the people. For me, there's a lot of meaning to this piece, but I will let you come to your own conclusions because there's lots of ways that you can interpret this page. And by the way, one of the reasons why I do this in these composition books, another reason, is because I like to figure out composition and color palettes, and basically I just like to create, and my favorite pieces, I will use them as inspiration to create on canvas, which I know I haven't done that a lot because I've said before, I'll say it again, I don't know how to paint. I just do it, and it's trial and error, and I'm not really at the point where I can show. I want to be honest and transparent and show my journey, but I'm also just not quite ready to have the camera looking over my shoulder while I'm painting because I am still just learning and I've never had any classes or any kind of formal training really. So we'll get there, but this is one of the ways that I figure out what I want to put on a canvas. Now you can see how I used it as a mask, and now I'm going to take the people that I cut out using the stencil and figure out where I'm going to place them on the page. I played around with a couple of different options, but I ended up gluing them right in the center of where I did the outline. And I like the way they came out. I'm just going to use a little tacky glue and stick them in there. And that's pretty much it for this page. I kind of feel like there's something missing, but I don't really know what it is. So when I'm not really sure how to finish a page off, I will call it a day and maybe not come back to it another day, which is why my journals take so long to finish. This is the first one that I will actually finish pretty soon, and then I will do a flip through. But it's okay because sometimes after a while I get used to looking at them and I don't want to add anything else. Or sometimes I'll flip through and have a great idea and decide to try it, and I'll finish off what I've left sitting for so long. As I glue this last one down, I am just admiring the gold shimmer around each of the silhouettes, and I decided I needed a little bit more gold. So I took a really thin gold paint and just splattered it around. I really love the extra little shimmers. So if you're still here, thank you for your support. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please like and subscribe so I can continue making these videos and learning and growing and making them better. I hope you all have a very creative week, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.